Hey, what's up everyone? Danny here. In this video, I want to talk about the mega fight that everyone was watching this weekend, this last Saturday night, for Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier 2, the rematch. And first off, I just want to say that usually I don't like to do breakdowns or analysis of fights because I think there's too many experts or even so-called experts out there on the internet that likes to talk about all of their, their knowledge and whatnot. Although there's some great people out there, but there's also a lot of people that just eat wings and drink beer and actually comment about stuff that they think they should do or whatnot. It's just like, it reminds me of when I used to work in an office a decade ago, and I had these hockey fans, and people would come back to the office the next morning from a hockey night, and then it would just bash or trash talk their favorite hockey players and saying that bum and so forth should have done this and should have scored or should have stopped the puck and whatnot. And these guys never played hockey, for example, so never made it to the big leagues. So it's the same thing when it comes to fighting or mixed martial arts. I'm a lifelong martial artist myself, and I've been doing this stuff since I was the age of 6. All right, so kind of gets on my nerves when I see all these wannabes, especially now with the days of the internet and social media, talk about how much they know about fighting, but they've never sparred once in their life. Okay, so listen, I'm not here to trash talk anyone, just here to give a first impression or a first video of what I saw on Saturday night. I want to say that I am a huge Conor McGregor fan, all right? And nothing against Dustin Poirier. I think he's an excellent fighter, an excellent human being. But I am at heart, and Alex, my son, our family are huge Conor McGregor fans. And that's the reason why I'm doing this video, because seeing what happened kind of like hit me. And I wanted to discuss this, and I want to share with you guys my thoughts on the fight. So let's get right to it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to be watching the fight once again on my computer with no sound. So this is a good trick, guys. When you analyze fights, it's really important. This is a good trick. As a coach, I'm going to share some secrets with you. When you really want to study an opponent or a fight, don't watch it with the sound. Actually, watch it the first time, of course, as a fan, but then analyze the fight once again and turn it down. Press the mute button and watch it without the sound. And that's how you really want to analyze fights and watch the movements. You don't hear the crowds, you don't hear the commentators, you don't hear the sound of the strikes, you just analyze body movements, all right, the in and out. And I'm going to get to the in and out and body movements in a second. This is key for you guys to understand. So let's get right to it. I'm going to press play on my screen. Of course, for copyright reasons, I'm not sharing the videos, but I think you guys all saw the fight. So I'm going to walk you through it as I'm seeing the fight. It's not that long anyways. I'll press mute. Now, what went wrong? And I'm saying this because, like I said, as a huge Conor McGregor fan, everyone was expecting, just as myself, that this was going to be a very short fight and a quick knockout. And that's not what we saw. That wasn't the outcome. I want to talk about what I thought is Conor McGregor, what he did differently. I'm not going to say what he did wrong like most people do, because I don't think he did anything wrong. Here's my thoughts on the fight. Let's first off, I want to first say that up and during the fight itself, I think myself as well as anyone watching this video is going to agree that everyone thought McGregor was going to run through Dustin Poirier within the first round, right? And he's so confident in his interviews. He said it before, and usually what he says and predicts actually happens, right? And we're used to that stuff. We're used to that aura of invincibility from Conor McGregor. Just like it reminds me, back when I was fighting, it was boxing that I used to watch, and Mike Tyson, for example. So the Mike Tyson era was, you just knew that the fight wasn't going to last long, and you just knew for a certainty that someone's getting knocked out, and that certainly was Mike Tyson, right? It's going to be his opponent, no matter who was facing him in the ring. And there came a point where he faced some people where he wasn't able to do that. And that's exactly where I want to go with the Conor McGregor fight. Now, I'm watching the ring entrance right now. I thought Conor didn't look himself, and that's just me. That's the first thing I saw. Up until the interviews, everything looked great. But at the press conference, I told my wife, I said, Conor is a little bit different. Maybe it's the weight cut or something that's bothering him psychologically. He doesn't seem the same. Then when we saw the ring entrance on Saturday night, I mean, he was boasting the confidence, flamboyance, and that's the Conor McGregor we're used to. But there was something about his demeanor. I'm looking at him right now, and he looked a little scrawny. That's just my personal opinion. I know the last time we saw him fight was at 170 against Cowboy, and it was a little bit more bigger. And we saw him throughout the year. He was lifting a lot of weights, and he was putting on muscle. And we saw him much thicker than he was. I think what went wrong is the inactivity. I don't think Conor McGregor did anything wrong. Although there's a little bit of tactics fighting-wise that I can touch upon is, Personally, and I'm touching on this right away, is I want to talk about what Conor McGregor does best. All right, before we say what went wrong, is Conor is a master at moving in and out of range. He can do that in the spur of the moment. I don't think anyone in UFC does it better than him. All right, moving inside and outside of range. And I also think, that's another thing, I think he's one of the best counter fighters in MMA. I've never seen a better counter striker, and there's not to this day, right now at this moment, a better counter striker than Conor McGregor. He has this fight IQ that's out of this world. He has this timing and precision where he can hit you and find that laser. He has a laser in his hands where he finds the chin. Now, in order to achieve this, you need excellent footwork and agility. You need that mobility. You need to be able to be light on your feet, and you need to train that, of course. Now, we didn't get to see that in this fight. For me personally, that was the first thing I noticed when the fight started. Apart from the ring entrance, when the fight started, so here's the first round. Conor has his feet planted really solid on the canvas. And Dustin, I can tell from Dustin's movement, he's trying to move towards his left. Of course, that's the strategy to do. Walk away from the power punch. That's a great tactic. That's basics 101, right? Everyone should know this if you're a fighter. What I saw was Conor planting his feet a lot more and being heavy and grounded. And this is a good strategy. You want to put a lot of power into your punch. You want to sit down onto your punches. That was particularly done because he wanted to get in that devastating power shot of his, that left hand grenade, right? He had predicted he was going to take out Dustin very quickly in the first round. And my money was on that as well, just like a lot of other people. But that didn't happen. And I think the fact that he trained a lot of that low stance, very grounded, boxing, to put a lot of power, that's great because that's boxing for you. I mean, you need to plant your feet, you need to, settle yourself onto the ground to generate power. But the thing is, that's not the old Conor. That's not what he used to do usually. He used to plant his feet upon contact, but he was in and out, just like an agile cat. He was just like very quick, and I didn't see that. He was trying to stay in Dustin's face, and almost like he wanted to fight inside the pocket and catch him with some shots. Now, where did this style come from? I think it's the boxing. From what we saw in the media, he was focusing a lot on the boxing. Now, when you have a wide stance and a grounded stance, don't get me wrong, you have a very solid stance, but you're also sacrificing a lot of mobility, and your ability to move in and out very quickly is going to be compromised. So you can get away with it in a boxing match, but this is not a boxing match. You're not just trying to evade and block punches to the body and your head. You can't ignore the other half of the body, and that's the kicks, and especially the leg kicks. All right, one thing if you don't do Muay Thai is, I always tell people, kicks are very hard to read. They don't move the same way as punches. If someone throws a low kick at you, when I decide to throw a body kick or a head kick, there's not much, there's very subtle differences. It's going to be hard for you to read. So that's the thing with kicks, especially low kicks. A lot of people say, well, you should just block them or whatnot, but it's difficult to do in the heat of action, right? Guys, I'm going to give you another rule, another secret, is anytime you limit your opponent's movement, you're in control. So that works both ways. If your ability to move quickly is limited, then you're not controlling the fight anymore. So this is exactly what happens when you start getting your legs chopped. And that's the thing, guys. If you can't put weight on your legs, especially the lead leg, number one, like I said, you can't generate power in your punches. You can't plant your feet anymore. And when it's important to do so. So if a man can't stand, he can't fight and throw his attacks properly. That's for sure. That's the one thing that, once he reached that calf a couple of times, Conor's movement was severely compromised. And that's one thing people have to understand is, if you can't move in and then move out effectively, out of range, you won't be able to fight. I think the turning point to me in this fight was when Dustin Poirier shot in on Conor McGregor. I was shocked personally to see Conor get taken down so quickly and easily by Dustin, but I think that was the defining moment of the fight, and I think that's what changed everything. I think that he and his team focused too much on the boxing element during his training camp. From what I saw on the media, he brought in some boxers and he was sparring a lot of southpaws and whatnot, and I think within that he was also preparing for a possible Manny Pacquiao fight. So I think boxing was on his mind a lot more than mixed martial arts. And the thing I want to talk about is condition. Conditioning is not anything new, guys. People and athletes have been getting conditioned for their sport since the beginning of it all. You can sit here and argue that there's new ways and old ways and all that stuff, but breathing hard is breathing hard, man. Getting conditioned means getting your body and mind acclimated to the task you're going to have at hand. I mean, there's no way you can achieve this if you don't put yourself into positions for it. In other words, perfecting your boxing skills and doing all the cardiovascular training possible is not going to help you if you're fighting a Muay Thai guy, right? You have to get conditioned, and being conditioned is not just about cardiovascular and being fit. It's about being acclimated to the task at hand. So that's the thing, guys. You have to have, some of the best Thai boxers to practice with, some of the best boxers. But the bottom line is this: when it comes to conditioning, it has nothing to do with how better shape you're in. I mean, you have athletes that run triathlons. These guys are in fantastic shape. Put them in the cage, you're not going to last a minute, right? So that has nothing to do with how great in shape you are. You can run, you can lift weights, you can do all the latest fancy stuff for conditioning. Conditioning is not about just that. Conditioning is about getting acclimated to the circumstance of what you're going to get into. In this case, a fight. For me, you can spar all you want with boxers, but hey, you're not going into a boxing fight here. You're fighting MMA. You're fighting mixed martial arts. Now, once again, I don't want to sound like I'm cracking at the McGregor camp or what they did in the training camp. I'm just saying this is what I saw. And what I saw from Conor was, number one, the lack of movement in and out. He was very solid, very grounded, and I think his strategy was probably to take Dustin out very quickly because he had predicted that. And I'm sure he could have because he has hand grenades in his hands, but Dustin is no slouch. I'm sure he prepared for that. Of course, he knew that he was coming in for the first 60 seconds trying to take his head off. So he prepared for that. He wasn't checking any kicks. He was keeping his feet on the floor. He ate those leg kicks. Now, Dustin Poirier's tactic was to start chopping the legs. And for those of you, let me touch on this for a second. For those of you, because I saw a lot of comments on the internet, on my social media feeds that, like Conor McGregor took all these kicks. Listen, let me tell you something. If you've never felt the power of a leg kick, of a shin bone slamming into your quadriceps inside or outside, or even in your calves, then you ought to try it, guys. You ought to get into the ring and fight a Thai boxer. Okay, tell me how that goes for you. Before you're quickly to point out that, he took those kicks and he wasn't able to, he's not tough and this and that. Listen, man, these kicks were coming strong and shin kicks hurt. That's the thing. That's my point, is you have to check those kicks. You can't just take them. And there was an accumulation of those kicks that eventually set the tone for the second round, and we all know what happened there. So, guys, if a man can't stand effectively, he can't fight effectively, all right? That's one of the rules of fighting. So if you can't stand because your legs are hurting, you got chopped into the legs a couple of times, that's going to make it very difficult, number one, to ground yourself effectively, to load up on that power. The power comes from your cross, has to transfer. You need to transfer your weight to your lead leg. So if you start to have a hard time standing on your lead leg, how are you going to generate power with that left cross? All right, that's impossible. That's number one. And number two is, once you get in, you must get out. All right, so that's another thing of fighting. That's called the range. Okay, you need that range. So you have to have the ability to be mobile, to have that movement. If you don't have that, the ability to move in quickly, do damage, and move out of range in order to prevent your opponent's attack, you're not in the fight anymore. And that's exactly what happened at round two. A lot of people didn't notice that. A lot of people noticed that in round two, he started getting leg kicks, and then just before the knockout happens, they saw the leg go limp. But listen, I actually saw that in the first round. So a lot of people are saying, Conor McGregor has lost it. Conor McGregor is getting too old. He hasn't lost anything, and he's not getting too old. I think he was in prime of his shape, his prime of his years as well. But I think what really took the toll was the long time away from the cage. That's another thing, guys, is if you're a fighter, a competitive athlete, you can't stay away from the sport too long. I mean, granted, he went into boxing, he did other business things, amazing things, but my point is, if you're going to fight in UFC, that's the elite of the elite, guys, in mixed martial arts. You can't take a whole year off or even 2 years off. I mean, before that, he had taken 2 years off. He went to boxing. After he beat Alvarez, he went in to fight Mayweather in boxing. So that was a 2-year layoff before he came back to fight Khabib. And after Khabib, there was another 2-year layoff before he fought Cowboy from 2018 to 2020. And now he took another year off, not to his choice, But I'm just saying it's still years off, so that accumulates over time. So that's a long time. So when you think about when he was fighting on a regular basis, 2 to 3 times a year, back in 2013 when he first came onto the scene, in the UFC at least, and it was back-to-back nonstop. So what's my take on what he should have done differently? Well, number one, I think the inactivity is what took its toll, so it's not about what he should have done differently. I think the timing of seeing the shot come in on his legs, you got to get acclimated for the situation. So I think he got acclimated with his boxing. You could tell, of course, hey, hands down, Conor McGregor is a way better boxer than Dustin Poirier, that's for sure. But this is not a boxing match, guys. This was mixed martial arts. And like I said earlier, you can't ignore half of the body, which is the leg kicks. That strategy where he started catching the leg kicks and lifting Dustin's leg up in the air, that strategy should have happened a little bit earlier. That's my personal opinion. So these are the things that, you know, in the heat of the moment, it's hard to, anybody could just sit on a chair and watch a fight and say, this should have been done, that should have been done. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not criticizing Conor McGregor. I think he's one of the best mixed martial artists on the planet. But I'm just saying this is what I saw. And the reason why I'm saying this and I'm doing this analysis of the video is because it kind of took me by shock, took me by surprise, and truthfully, it hurt me a little bit as a fan, as a fight fan, to see him lose in this fashion. And usually after one fight, I don't go back and watch them again. Man, I wanted to make this video because this could be good study factors for my students. It could be people who are fans of Conor McGregor who follow me on my channel as well. And it's going to be very good for my own son to watch this and listen to me talk while he watches the fight once again, because he's a mega Conor McGregor fan, and I am as well. So that's what happened here. And here we are at 242. This is where Conor's against the cage. And there was no more mobility. That leg was dead, like he said, and that's true. You could tell it right here. And he was just trying to slip, but he had got caught and then eventually got cracked with that left hand, and it was over. And to seeing that image of Conor lying down like this, it kind of hurt a little bit for me, being a fan. But hey, I don't appreciate all the people on social media. Don't go out there on social media and creating memes about stuff like this. This is not right, guys. I mean, you're allowed to cheer on for your favorite fighter, and that's sports, that's fans, that's great. It creates excitement. But one thing I personally don't appreciate is when people actually mock people that lose. It doesn't matter who it is. When they get knocked out like this, or if they lose, I don't appreciate when people make a mockery out of that. I mean, and truthfully so, is most people that do that stuff, they've never fucking fought once in their life. That's what pisses me off personally. So anyways, enough of that. I want to keep it positive. And man, the one great thing out of this is McGregor was very humble in defeat. That's what I was looking for. And he said no excuse at the press conference. And this is what I really appreciate as a fan, is he did that post-fight interview. And he went to the post-conference just like a true champion would, and said, listen, there was no excuse. Dustin fought a great fight, and he caught me, he capitalized on it, and it is what it is. I will be back. And that's the thing. I think he will be back. So I want to end this video as what are my thoughts as a coach for Conor McGregor? Is he done, or is he going to be back? I feel he will be back, but he has to be back quickly, has to be back fast. He can't wait and sit another year. For him as a fighter, that ring rust is real, guys. Okay, so it's real. I mean, if you haven't worked out for a little while and you hit the gym back again, you'll feel that rust. So imagine a real fight when the unexpected comes at you. And the unexpected is the hits, the strikes, the kicks, the takedowns, everything. That's the unexpected. You don't know. When you're in the gym and you follow a workout, you say, whoo, you know, you're doing that cardio boxing, whatever it is on the heavy bags. You're used to seeing that stuff and you know what's up. You know that your coach is going to say, okay, 3 minutes of this and then skipping rope and then push-ups and whatnot. But because you haven't done it for a long time, it becomes very difficult. So imagine in a real fight, you haven't done it in a while, and then you're going there, but no one's going to tell you, okay, at the 30-second mark, this is going to happen, so react to it. No, you just don't know. So that is the conditioning aspect. That's the thing you need to become acclimated to, is you need to feel that pressure. You need to feel that pressure. So I think he will be back. But my take on it is he has to be back very fast. He has to be already in negotiations with Dana White right now, already trying to prepare what his next fight is. And hey, If it's the rematch with Dustin Poirier, great. I think he's gonna look at the fight, study it, fix certain things, and I think he will be back, because a second time, it's not just about fixing things. I think the second time now, that little ring rust, it's already shaken off, right? Plus, he's hungry now. He needs to become hungry. I know he's a millionaire and whatnot, and now he's sitting on, a lot of money and fame, but he needs to remind himself where he came from, and I think he needs to go back to the drawing board and be hungry again. There's a quote where the wolves that are at the bottom of the mountain are not as hungry as the wolves that are on the top, and that's very true, guys. If when you're sitting on the top of the world and everything's going well, especially if you have a lot of fame, fortune, and money, you're not going to be as hungry as when you went to prepare for a fight, and this determines if you're going to be eating the next week or not, right? So that makes a huge difference. That's the thing. That's why I always said, like in Muay Thai, for example, these fighters, they're hungry, right? These guys are poor in Thailand, and they're fighting to put food on their table. They're fighting to put a mattress so they can sleep on, right? There's a big difference in that stuff. So that's what I think Conor needs to do, is mentally going back to remembering where he came from and be hungry once again. I think this loss is only going to be a great thing for Conor McGregor fans to see, because he's going to come back hungrier than ever. He's going to want to avenge that loss. I mean, he's proven it before. I think if he comes back, my money's still on Conor McGregor if he comes back against a rematch for the trilogy. And but there's other fights out there. I mean, a great fight could also be Dan Hooker, could also be Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. I'd love to see Ferguson against McGregor as well. That's the thing. Styles make fights. I've always said this all the time. All my life I've said this to my students, is styles make fights. You can have Dustin Poirier beat Conor McGregor, and then Conor McGregor could go against another guy that Dustin Poirier didn't beat, for example, but Conor McGregor could beat that person. We've seen that in boxing so many times. Styles make fights. And whether or not, I don't know, I wasn't at the training camp of Dustin Poirier, but maybe that was his game plan as well. And if it was, hey, hats off, that's an amazing game plan. But it worked. But I don't think it's going to work again, nevertheless, if there's a trilogy rematch. I think if there's this rubber match, McGregor takes it. My money's on him once again, okay? Because I think he's going to fix a couple of things, and the ring rust won't be there, and I think his timing and precision is going to be a little bit more sharp. All right, so that is it, guys. I just wanted to share my thoughts, because this fight struck me. I wasn't expecting it, like most of the people. I think the whole world didn't expect this. Hopefully, he gets a fight real soon. We'll see him again, and I think the old Conor McGregor will be back. All right, so that's it, guys. That's just my 2 cents. Just wanted to share it. Hope you enjoyed this video.